Hey guys, welcome to the AskDomThat Podcast. Thank you so much for supporting, no matter where you're listening. I definitely appreciate the growth that I've been seeing from everybody engaging with us. So, if this is your first time or your every week on here, please just like, subscribe wherever you're listening. It certainly helps us in our growth. So, let's get right into it. Today and this week, we're talking about two questions, and one of them I got from B Olive on Instagram. Check him out, B Olive Texas or B Olive TX on Instagram. Does velocity banking work, and what are my thoughts on velocity or infinite banking? Great question. The second one I got from a friend of ours, Josue. He took the course and got a lot of great feedback from it on the investing in real estate masterclass. And in our conversations, he also asked Dom, can I outline a real estate step by step kind of for beginners? And I think the course helped him out a lot with that. But I'm going to share with you guys kind of a sped up version of what that step by step might look like. So the first one, does velocity banking work? Well, the short answer is no. It doesn't achieve what a lot of people thinks that it achieves. Velocity banking is designed for people to reduce their payment or the amount of time that it takes for them to pay off a debt. However, the same effect happens if you just make extra payments. Using a third party vendor to help you do velocity banking is going to cost you more money than I think you're trying to save. So for those who don't know what velocity or infinite banking is, let's start there. Velocity and infinite banking is this new-ish, I think. It's probably been around in many different forms for a long time, but on social media, certainly YouTube, a lot of people show, hey, you can pay your mortgage off in 7 years instead of 30. You can pay your medical bills, your school debt, everything, whatever. You can pay it off a lot sooner than you thought, right? Like instead of taking 6 years or something to pay your medical bills, you might be able to pay it off in 3. And a lot of people have said that they've used this tool to pay off large amounts of debt in a short amount of time. I'm not going to go over exact numbers in this podcast because we have a lot of listeners that are listening to it, and it'd be very hard to follow number by number if you're not watching it on YouTube. So what I'll do is I'll just talk about it conceptually. However, I do recommend a YouTube channel which is School of Personal Finance. Rich McCormick, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, is over on that channel. He did a great job in a video outlining why velocity banking doesn't really work, how people think it does, right? Like, or what these gurus are really selling. And I'll do another video myself for YouTube that breaks down the numbers. But for you today, I'm going to say I've looked at infinite banking, I've looked at velocity banking, and it doesn't achieve what you want it to achieve. And here's how velocity banking allegedly works. You have a mortgage, and instead of paying it for 30 years, which you're going to pay interest all throughout those 30 years, and typically you're going to pay about double the cost of the house with a 30-year mortgage. And most of that's going to go towards the principal or all, but a large part of it's going to go towards interest. So on 300,000, you may pay $550,000 over 30 years. So instead of, just doing that over 30 years, velocity banking says, wait, get a line of credit, get some other credit, whether that's a credit card, whether that's another loan, and use that to take the entire amount of money of that loan and chunk it, take a big chunk out of your mortgage now. So take $10,000 from your line of credit and put it in your mortgage. And the way the interest works, because amortized interest on your mortgage versus simple interest on your line of credit, these terms might not be familiar to you if you're listening, but trust me, what they're claiming is, well, you're going to save money over time in interest. But it only works if you have savings coming in. If you have an extra $1,000 a month, they're saying instead of putting it in your savings account, now you use that to pay off the line of credit that you essentially did. Well, essentially, you can do the same thing by taking your savings and paying off your mortgage earlier. Just apply the payment directly to your mortgage. Then the excuse they're going to give you to not do that is, well, no, the way amortizations work versus the paying off with your line of credit, you're going to save some interest. Yeah, but it's minimal. It's a couple, percentage points per year. So really, you might save, like, depends on your average housing cost, $20, $30 a month, right? But guess what? If you've ever tried to pay a mortgage or a utility, or anything big with a credit card, which they say, hey, pay everything with your credit card, and then just pay off your credit card. Instead of don't have any money in your checking account, just have it in your credit card and your line of credit, and use that as your daily kind of thing. If you've ever tried to pay your mortgage with a credit card, you're going to find out that it's very difficult, if not like just a complete headache. And they only really let you do it easily when you're behind and you're late, and they're going to try to secure any money instead of let you default. But there's third-party services that allow you to do it, because now you pay the third-party service, and the third-party service writes your mortgage company a check. However, you have to pay a percentage, 3% fee at least, to do that. So by the time you pay the fee, you're not saving money on this velocity banking thing. And the reality is, velocity banking entails that you have a good amount of savings coming in, and instead of saving that money, you apply it towards your debts. That's not a bad concept at all. You can, especially if you have high interest credit cards, pay those off. If you have high interest debts, don't save money in a 0% savings account. Apply that towards your debts so that you can become debt free. And then once that's all done, then you can start saving and, more importantly, investing your money. But if you don't have savings, then the problem is, yeah, you're going to pay off your mortgage with a chunk from your line of credit. But guess what? You don't have enough money to pay off your line of credit now. So now you just got two people that you owe money to, and not just one. So you can get in a lot of trouble, especially as life changes, right? Like, you can lose your job. You can decide, I'm going to change careers and not make the same amount of money, but follow something I'm more passionate about. But guess what? You went and got yourself in more debt with a different creditor. And the way mortgages work, no matter if you pay a $15,000 extra in 1 month, next month your mortgage payment's the same. So now you still have to pay the same amount to your mortgage payment here, but you also now own or owe for line of credit or a different type of debt. So I can't stress it enough. The money that comes in from your day-to-day job or your investments, don't put it in your savings account if you have high interest credit debts. Pay those off. But once you've paid those off, if you have low interest debts like your home, right? This is another reason why I don't really believe in velocity banking for your mortgage, or mortgages if you have multiple properties, is that instead of looking at how much money you can save by paying off $15,000, $20,000 extra to your mortgage, well, you got to recognize that some people have mortgages of 3%, 4%. Well, if you can put that $15,000 in a investment that's giving you 10%, 12, and sometimes a lot more than that, 15%, then you're way better off in the long run than trying to pay off a 3% mortgage. I always rather have cheap debt, and if that money is already established as far as my house or other properties that I own, if the rents are paying for it, that's okay. The bank over 30 years is going to get money. That's fine, right? Like, I'm not trying to stop other people from succeeding, right? Great. But that doesn't mean that over 30 years, I can't make that same amount of money if I learn how to play their game. You can make sure that over 30 years, if you start early and by the time you retire, that's 30 years of holding a house. Well, if the bank was making sure they made 3% off of you for the last 30 years, and you made sure that you were making 5, 6, or hopefully even more than that. I mean, really, you're looking to making 15, 20% a year, and a lot more, honestly, as you start growing your business. It's not percentages, it's multiples, right? Like, if you only have a little bit of money to start off with, then making 10% a year doesn't really amount to a lot. But if you start now multiplying your money, that's how people become millionaires over the course of 2 or 3 years. And that's not because they were making percentages. But yeah, you can play that game as well. So now your money is actually being invested and growing, and you're not worried about paying off a debt that's pretty stable. And mortgages is probably going to be the cheapest money that you're going to get in a traditional sense. So I'm not sure why people are so infatuated with paying off their mortgage early, because mortgages are cheap money that you can get a property that hopefully starts increasing in value. You put a tenant in there, paying off that mortgage. It's just a win-win-win if the market's going in your favor. And if it's not, hopefully you have extra time to weather the storm. So velocity banking is not something that I would recommend to pay off your debts. I would recommend just using your extra funds to put into paying off your mortgage if that's something that you choose, because you don't get into more debt somewhere else and then something happens and all of a sudden you're stuck. But I'll make a YouTube video breaking down the numbers, and you can see an example of what it would look like if you just took your savings and applied it versus trying to do a velocity banking situation. Remember one thing though, I don't recommend. There's only one reason to me to pay off your mortgage early, and that's on your primary residence. And that's once you already started investing in other properties and you've been successful in investing in other properties. And now you have a primary residence and you just want the assurity that nothing is, well, not nothing, but fewer things can happen that your house can go into default. So just the comfort of knowing that no matter what else happens in your business, your house is at least already paid off. And that allows you to continue to take risks in your business because your family is secure and so forth. So that's the only reason that I recommend paying off your house early, because it's really just to ease your mind. But mathematically speaking, it's a bad investment to pay off your house early. I want my viewers to know that on the numbers, if you're just doing it from a number standpoint, yeah, you should not pay your house off early when you have a low interest mortgage. And you should refinance when you have an opportunity if you have a high interest mortgage, because your house is the most valuable thing that a lot of people have, and the money is in the house. So if it's paid off and there's just money in the house, well, you can't use it for life experiences like going on a trip and so forth. But if that's already covered and you don't have to worry about that, and you want to make sure that the market doesn't turn on you, you lose your job, and now you still have this debt, and your investments aren't going well, so you don't know how you're going to pay off the house. I could understand just a mental kind of alleviation of being able to pay off your house. You don't have to worry about it. It's the same as somebody investing in a therapist, honestly. The return on investment is mental and not really something tangible or in your bank account. But it's a good idea if psychologically you want to avoid those headaches in the future. And it allows you to take bigger risks, because whatever happens with your investment properties doesn't necessarily affect, hopefully, whether or not your kids can sleep in a safe and comfortable home. Hopefully you've taken care of that already. So that's my thoughts on investment banking or velocity banking. It's not a great concept to be able to save money and grow your portfolio from an investment standpoint, because you're just paying off a debt that's already stabilized. And I recommend that you stay away from it. The other question is, hey Dom, can you outline the real estate investing kind of step by step? And I love this, right? So let's get into it. What does real estate investing step by step look like? Let me go over it. The first step that you want to do when you start and realize that you want to be a real estate investor is, um, you want to start going to meetup events. You want to start meeting people, going to professional networking events, and introducing yourself. If you haven't had a deal, if you haven't done a deal yet, introduce yourself as a new investor, just looking to do their first deal. Right? Like let people know that. And the reason you want to let people know that is because a lot of these meetup events, they're kind of pissing contests, trying to see who has more properties, who has more experience, who's holding more money. Everybody's kind of trying to come off as a big guy. But if you come in there like, hey, I'm from a different industry, whether that's construction, technology, finance, whatever. I'm in a different industry, and I'm now coming into real estate investing, but I haven't done my first deal yet. I'm kind of just learning and hoping to learn and establish my network. Well, then people don't feel like they have to posture to you, right? Like they don't have to feel like, well, I have more than you. Well, now they are more open to kind of feeling like they can be your mentor and telling you what they know and giving you kind of their trade secrets, whatever. Everybody wants to feel like the big man in town, in these things, except for the big people, the people that are actually doing a lot and they know it. They are very much like able to be humble about it for the most part. There's a couple that definitely aren't, but they've been around the block enough to know they don't have to self-validate. The numbers speak for themselves. So you start going to these events, you start meeting people. That's really the important thing. Start building the network. You're going to meet people who are in the loan and financing world. You're going to meet people who are doing wholesaling, or you're going to meet realtors, everybody, construction guys. So these are people that you're just learning and asking questions. Now, what questions? Well, hopefully, if you're listening to this podcast, you've listened to other podcasts, you've watched videos, you have formed your own questions as to what you don't really understand. And there's certain things that you really understand really well. So you're going to try to fill those blanks. And whether it's some people are going to need more help with the financing. Other people are going to need help with finding deals. So it just depends on where you're at in that spectrum. But you're going to be asking people those questions on, what about this about their business, and what are the financing terms typically for somebody? What type of projects do they do? The size, whether they're giving loans or helping you to purchase the house. You kind of want to know where you're going to fit into their ecosystem. But listening is the most important part, like making sure that you know who's valuable to keeping your Rolodex of people. All right, so now you've gone to these meetup events. People kind of know you. Believe me, you're going to shake a lot of hands and be very receptive to the information. Now it's time to find a location that you're going to invest in. I always recommend in the city that you're in, or at least no more than 45 minutes to an hour. So even if you're in a big city like LA, or New York, that you might not be able to afford the properties there, you go in 45 minutes out, whether that's towards Ventura County or an hour out. I'm not really sure how far that is, but Ventura County is from LA is pretty reasonable, or New York has, 45 and an out minutes to an hour. You're in a whole different state, and there's a lot of opportunities as well. Of course, they're not the Big Apple, but you don't have Big Apple money right now. So you at least can afford something that's close enough for you to go out there. If something goes wrong, you're not necessarily just making phone calls and trusting people. Because trust me, even if you don't have money, if you live in New York and you have a house in Oklahoma, and you're trusting that your contractors, your tenants, whatever, telling you the truth, they are thinking of you as the big time, big money New York investor that just has properties all over the country. So it's almost like, don't worry about it. This guy has it. Screw him. We're going to, charge him this price and blah, blah, blah. Especially if you're coming off as if you don't really know the industry that well right now. So you're going to lose a lot of money with people thinking that you're kind of this big time investor from another state. It's happened to me quite a bit. I don't think that I've lost money overall. I just know that I've been taxed to a certain degree by not being local, but it's part of the game. So the 45 minutes is important because you know your area. You can drive there. You can find deals. You can work. It's just better. You have more resources around. You can get a lot more help starting out. People that you know, you're shaking hands, versus just phone calls and never meeting somebody, just sending money, and all of a sudden there's problems that come with that as well. So now that you found your location, hopefully where you're at or within 45 minutes, the type of house that I really recommend you look at is just your traditional American standard home. 3 bedroom, 2 bath, or something that has a potential to be 3 bedroom, 2 bath. And right now, like medium home price is about 300 something thousand. So you want to look for, ideally, if you're just really starting out and you want to buy something that can be very vanilla and generic. So what you want to look at once you're finding your location is what are the vanilla and generic homes as far as layout, the designs and whatever. We can get into that, but the layout, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, what are those going for? And in a lot of places in the United States, you can get those for 320,000. That's what they're selling for. And if you're in one of these places where 320 is a decent number, then and there's a lot of people that's not feasible, right? Like I know that, but even if you're getting 3 bedroom, 2 bath for $3.2 million where you're at, trust me, 1 hour away from there is not the case. If the 3 bedroom, 2 bath is 320, for example, and where you're at, well, now you have your starting point. That's once you find your property, you know that that's also where it's gonna land. You also have to see, okay, that's what the after repair value is. Now, what are rents going for? In a lot of places for a house like that, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, maybe going for $1,900. So I kind of did these numbers. I looked at a couple places. So if rents are going for $1,900, that's reasonable. There's a lot of places where that same 3 bedroom, 2 bath is going for a lot more than 1,900. But you got to understand where rents are in your market, because that's what's going to dictate how much mortgage you can afford as well. So now you kind of have your location and you have, all right, I'm going to try to buy something that can be a 3 bedroom, 2 bath. Even if it's a 3 bedroom, 1 bath when you buy it, well, I know I can add a bathroom or I can maneuver something around. But how much do you pay for it? Well, now you got to find your property first, right? Before you know how much you're going to pay for it. But you got to find your property. And I know that the bank is always going to be able to give me 75% loan to value. 75% loan to value means whatever the value of the house is, 320, they're going to give me 75% of that in the form of a loan. So that's $240,000. All right, so 240,000 is what the bank's going to give me in total. That's not what I want to pay for the house. That means that my entire project, for the Burr method to work, right, or for the cash out refinance method to work, the entire project really has to cost me $240,000. What does that mean for you? That means that I, Dominique Pereira, recommend that you buy a house that you can buy, rehab, and do all the administrative closing costs for $240,000. So you might have to buy the house for 200,000, do the rehab for 30, 35,000, and then you have $5,000 there in those administrative and closing costs that'll kind of fluctuate a little bit. But if you do that, then your numbers are going to work out. And here's why. So you're going to find a property. Again, these are going to be hopefully a distressed property, something that doesn't need a lot of work as far as complete tear down or whatever. I've done projects where we had to completely gut the place, and it's going to change, of course, as your experience level gets more comfortable. But the reality is that you're going to have to find something that works with your budget. And this is the beginning of your investment strategy. So you're going to get the most vanilla thing to start. And 320,000 is right in line with a lot of places in the country. There's some places and a lot of places that are even less than that. So it just depends. But you're going to be driving for dollars. That means that you're literally taking your car and you're riding around neighborhoods. You're going to have a map that's segmented, and you're going to be like, I checked houses physically, been looking at houses in these neighborhoods. Boom, I see this house here that looks like it has a lot of mail piled up. Nobody's been living here, whatever the case is. You're going to try to find that owner through public records, through skip tracing, whatever, and ask them if they would like to sell that house if it fits in with that criteria that you know can be your 3-bedroom, 2-bath, whatever, 1,700 square foot home that you can rent out for $1,900, $2,000 plus dollars. And as long as it doesn't need more than $35,000 to $40,000 worth of work, you can pay $200,000 for that home. And once you get in contact with that person, 9 out of 10 people are going to say, no, I'm not interested, or whatever the case. But for the most part, you are going to have quite a few people that are interested. You are, because nobody really likes to sit on an empty home or a distressed home, especially if they've been there for a long time. If they're older, they just want to get out. And they might have paid $35,000 for that home back in their day. They might have paid $40,000, $50,000, whatever their situation is. Now you're offering them $200,000. So they'll take it, even though it's below market value. Of course, the after repair value we talked about is 320, but everybody's circumstances is different. Some people just want to get out of the deal and nobody's approached them, or the person that's approached them before may have really tried to lowball them, or it just wasn't the right time. But you can find deals, and some of the ways that I found deals are, like I said, driving for dollars, you can record a simple advertising that you can put on Facebook, Instagram, based on area. So on the areas that you're targeting to buy your property, so that you let people know, hey, if you're interested in selling your house, give me a call. We'll come out, whatever. Or you can also look on the MLS for homes that kind of fit your ideal, and as well do a search for homes that were on the market but didn't sell. So if they were on the market for 90 days, 120 days, and they didn't sell at that price, maybe they're now more open to negotiating a lesser or a lower price. These are all little techniques that you can do, but a lot of the homes that you're also going to come across are going to come from that network that you've been building. People that are in real estate, maybe now they've made their money, they're older, they want to get rid of some properties, or they decided, whatever their decisions are to get off of properties, or if they're a wholesaler that you've built a relationship with, they might put you in contact with some great properties. So it's a lot of different ways to find the properties, but they're certainly out there. You're going to offer, let's say, that $200,000. All right. You could either do this with a realtor, or if you're in a state like Texas, like I'm invested in, I can do the deal myself. I don't need a realtor. And we can kind of just do the deal ourselves. And it's really the buyer who typically pays realtor fees. But when you're doing deals like this, where they didn't put it on the market per se, then they don't want to pay any realtor fees either way. And sometimes they want the seller to pay that if they do get realtors involved. So I do a lot of deals myself, and I write up the contract. Boom. or letter of or offer letter. If they acknowledge, whether that's through not even signing a contract, but just a, a letter of intent to buy the property, and we just kind of have that agreement. Now, all of a sudden, I'm on the hunt for my lender, right? And my lender is going to ask, are you under contract? And if I say yes, they're working that property even harder, that loan for me. They're like, oh, wow, we know you have 15, 20 days, whatever, that I agreed with the seller. Sometimes it's 30 days, but a lot of people that are selling distressed properties want to get out of it really soon, sometimes 7 days or less. But who am I calling as far as my lenders? Well, it depends on the condition of the house, and it depends how much work it has and how much money you have access to. So if you only have a little bit of money, you want to make sure that you understand how different lenders work. If this is going to be an investment property, and you aren't going to live in there, and you tell any bank in the country that, then they're going to want 20% down, right? For the most part. If you're going to live in this property, or it's going to be owner occupied and it's in a condition where you can live in it, then a lot of banks allow you to put 5% down. The reason that's important is because a lot of investors start their portfolio by buying owner-occupied homes. You only have to live in there for a year, technically. Now, if you do live in there, if you don't, well, you got to understand the consequences of not living in a property that you told the bank you will live in. And I'll maybe do another video on that. But the bank wants you to commit to living in there for 1 year, and then after that, you can do whatever you want. I think that's a great way to start your investment property, because on a $200,000 home, if it's in a condition where you can live in there, but you still can fix it up while you're in there, whatever the case is, you're only putting $10,000 down. Now, on top of that $10,000, you're going to have to get some rehab money. So if you are able to take a year to do that house, it's a slow crawl, I know, but it at least gets you in the game. And that doesn't mean that you can't start looking for another property, an investment property, while you're in the house, right? But you at least got the first base. But let's say you don't go that route and you decide this is going to be an investment property. Well, and the house isn't even in a condition that you can live in. Well, you can get what's called a hard money lender. And the hard money lender is somebody that offers loans for rehab type properties on a short-term basis. It's going to cost you a lot more money as far as down payment, because a lot of hard money lenders want you to put 20% down, especially if you don't have any experience and you haven't worked with them before. You put 20% down. I do go over my course a couple experiences that I've had where I didn't put any money down with my hard money lender. I've had plenty of experience up to that point, or at least enough for them. I didn't think it was plenty, but it was enough, and the deal was an amazing deal. So they found enough value in the deal for me not to have to put any money down. But that's not necessarily typical. So on a $200,000 deal, you're going to need $40,000. Now, whether that's you're partnering with somebody or you had that saved, whatever the case is, you're going to need that money down. But remember, you also need to now do a rehab for that property. And that rehab, we already said, could only take $30,000 to $35,000. That's really where you want to be at for this property. The good thing with hard money lenders is that they allow you to finance the rehab with them as well. So there's some details in there that I can go over. But generally speaking, you're allowed to borrow the $30,000 for the rehab from them. So now once you do your rehab, you have your home and you did your rehab, now it's worth $320,000. Cool. Now that's when you're going to find another bank or the same bank. It depends who you used for the loan. But if you find a bank that can give you a 30-year loan on this home, what they're going to do is give you 75% loan to value on that. They're going to give you a loan based on now the value of this rehab home, which hopefully is going to be at least $320,000. All right, well, what does that loan mean to you? Well, now you have ended your relationship with the hard money lender, and the numbers get complicated when you are listening to it versus watching, but ultimately you get all your money back because you paid your hard money lender all the rehab money. You paid them the original loan of 230 or 200,000, and you paid yourself your $40,000 that you put down. So you're out with all your money back in your pocket, and there's some really sweet deals where you actually come out with more money than you put out. So now you have 25% equity in this house, and you have your money in your pocket. You put in a renter in there. Well, like I said, you already know what this house is going to be able to rent for early on because you did that research. And typically rents go up. They don't really go down too much. So if that project took you 3-4 months, the rents will pretty much still be about the same or have gone up a little bit. Now, what does your mortgage look like? Well, your mortgage, I love to use Redfin to check out what my monthly payment will be, because your mortgage on 320,000, well, you're not really going to be paying a mortgage on 320,000. You're going to be paying a mortgage on 240,000. But that's going to be like $1,700 depending on your property taxes. But your mortgage, you can calculate what the mortgage is going to be before you even ever do the deal because of an amortization schedule. So you know that your payment every month is going to be $1,700, $1,750. That's why it's important that your rent is at least going to cover your mortgage and you want some cash flow in there. It's not a lot of cash flow at these numbers because it's only about $200 in cash flow every month. But you have all your money back in your pocket. You have 25% equity in the house because they, gave you the 75% loan to value, so you own the 25%. You have somebody paying your house down every month. And you have your house hopefully gaining equity every month. It's a lot of wins. And now you have that property kind of done and under your belt so you can go off and do the next one. And that's just a basic kind of strategy for you to get into real estate investing. It's a little bit of a jump when you first do it, but ultimately, once you do that once, twice, and 3 times, then you start getting into bigger properties. You start really honing in how your numbers have to look for that cash flow to not be $200 a month, but you have properties that are giving you $500 and now $1,000 a month in cash flow. And the previous ones are compounding because when you look back, now you've been doing this for 3-4 years. You have a house that you hopefully bought in a great neighborhood that appreciated $100,000 or appreciated, probably $30,000, hopefully $40,000, and all that money is yours to borrow against, yours to leverage, yours to use as collateral on other deals. So it opens up the possibility of your financial growth, and it all starts with really figuring out where your first deal is going to be and how to get into that first deal. But going to these meetup events and meeting people, then start making offers. You don't have to make very attractive offers to people. Maybe if you want to be more conservative, don't offer where your numbers are going to work, just kind of, or where your numbers are hopefully going to work, right? You're going to have to offer aggressive pricing and somebody might take it. If you may have to make 100 or 200 offers, but that all you need is that one deal to get you started. So hopefully that aligns with a couple people's view of what it is that you have to do to get started in real estate investing. That's how I got started. It's been working out for me exceptionally well. Now I'm looking to doing larger deals, apartment complexes, and that's a whole different kind of topic when it comes to syndication deals and so forth. But the principle is absolutely still the same. Find a property that needs a lot of work or a little bit of work, a reasonable amount of work, whatever. Buy it at a certain price. If it's a multi-million-dollar property, you might need to get people involved to help you pay for it. And you finance most of it. You bring the property up to market value, and then you refinance out of it. Or you sell it. I refinance out of the properties. So I hold on to them. I pay out certain investors that are going to be getting out the deal. I take on their equity stake. Whatever the case is, it ultimately works the same way. You increase the value of a property, and now you have something that you can charge more in rent for. You get more value out of the equity because it's forced appreciation, and you can use that equity to borrow against, and your net worth has increased. It's all just pluses all around. And the great thing with this is if you're doing your rehabs correctly, you're hopefully not going to have too many capital expenditures. So your CapEx costs, like big fixes, your roof, your air conditioning units, so your plumbing system. You're hopefully not going to have too many of those. They do come up. I've had more leaks than I would like to admit, but they're fixes here and there and not an entire gut of an electrical system, because you did the rehab knowing that you're going to be keeping the property. You're not cheapening out. You're not taking shortcuts where it's going to hurt you and be detrimental towards the next year or 2 years down the line, and you're now holding this bag of problems in the property. So that's how I got started. That's how I recommend a lot of people get started. And it's not as hard as you really think it is once you do get started. So let me know what you guys think and if that information was helpful. That's this week's episode of the AskDomThat Podcast. Now there's going to be some legal talk just so that somebody out there doesn't try to sue me. Thanks, guys.
The AskDomThat Podcast is provided for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only, without any express or implied warranty of any kind, including warranties of accuracy, completeness, or fitness for any particular purpose. The information contained in or provided from this podcast is not intended to be and does not constitute financial advice, investment advice, trading advice, or any other advice. The information discussed is general in nature and is not specific to you or anyone else. You should not make any decision, financial, investment, trading, or otherwise, based on any of the information presented on this podcast without undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional broker or financial advisory. You understand that you are using any and all information available from this podcast at your own risk. We thank you for listening, and be sure to follow AskDomThat on all digital platforms. See you in the next one.